Hey, guys, welcome to Vanquisher. In this video we discuss part 8 of Naruto, the Vanquisher. Chapter 8, Escape and Preparations. It's been 2 years and Naruto was walking towards the academy to attend the final day of his academy. He was lazily walking through the streets and suddenly he stumbled across Konohamaru, who was also going to the academy. On their way, they both started to do crazy pranks on the civilians and they got chased by the mob. They were chasing after both Naruto and Konohamaru for what they have done. The mob couldn't outrun them. Soon they both escaped from the place and they were nowhere to be found. Naruto was now standing in front of the academy's main gate. Konohamaru was standing by Naruto's and he was waiting for his friends. Then he shouted, "Big bro, your friends are here as well." Naruto then turned around to see Fudo, Shikamaru, and Shino coming towards him. Fudo sighted both of them and said, "You two brothers have already made a mess with your pranks. The civilian mob is going crazy to find both of you." Konohamaru laughed at their comment. Konohamaru was on his way to his class. Naruto entered the class and went to the corner to his usual position. Iruka then entered the class and announced that today is their final test. Their first exam is to test their knowledge, so it is a written test. All of them have given their exam and Mizuki said that everyone should move to the training ground for their final test. Their skills in shuriken throwing and the use of other ninja tools were tested. Finally, Iruka asked everyone to perform one ninjutsu to gauge their skill and ability to use ninjutsu techniques. The last one is Jujutsu and strength evaluation. Instead of making them fight a chunin as normal, this time they were asked to spar with their classmates. Everything was going well and no one was injured until the final match that was between Sasuke Uchiha and Hibiki Kurama. Hibiki was from the Kurama clan, which is on par with the Uchiha clan in using genjutsu techniques. They both were facing each other. Mizuki then gave a signal to start the match. They both engaged in a taijutsu fight, but Sasuke had much better techniques and soon Hibiki was at a disadvantage. Using a wall, Hibiki created distance between them. He then used a genjutsu on Sasuke, but after few seconds it was broken with ease and soon he dashed towards Hibiki to strike him down. He used his earth style to create obstacles in Sasuke's path, but they were shattered. They were going at it, but after few minutes Hibiki started to lose his edge because he had no chakra to spare. Taking this as an opportunity, Sasuke released a huge fireball at Hibiki. Seeing this, he created a small wall to hide from the fireball that was coming at him, but he was too late and the attack hit him head on. He was severely injured and he then gave up the match, but Sasuke didn't stop. He went and attacked him. Hibiki was lying unconsciously on the floor, but Sasuke was about to land another blow, but suddenly someone grabbed his hand. The proctors interrupted the match and Hibiki was in a very serious condition and he was immediately taken to the hospital for further treatment. Sasuke then looked at the person who caught his hand. It was Naruto and soon he let go of Sasuke's hand. Naruto turned his back to Sasuke and started to walk away. Sasuke was looking at his hand, which was almost purple. Everyone on the ground was in shock to see how Naruto saved Hibiki. Sasuke then asked Naruto to stop, but Naruto was still walking away from the place. Sasuke was pissed off and started to mock Naruto in front of the class. Naruto then stopped and said, "Sasuke, you don't have any power to stop me from going away." Naruto then said, when someone walks away from a fight, it doesn't mean that he is afraid of the opponent, it also means that his opponent is not at the same level of power. This statement caught everyone off guard and Naruto was saying that Sasuke is inferior in strength when compared with him. He then said, "I would not fight you, even if someone orders me to fight you." Naruto then walked away from the place and everyone started to call him a coward, but only a few knew how strong Naruto was and why he backed down from the fight. At this point, at the Hokage Tower inside the council room, there was a huge commotion because of an argument between the Shinobi Council and the Civilian Council. The Civilian Council requests that Naruto should not become a ninja. The Shinobi Council was against it and Danzo, one of the advisors, got up and said that he would take responsibility and train him. These two requests caused a huge commotion inside the council room. Hiruzen was just sitting there and looking at the argument that was going on. Then one of the civilian council members stood up and said that there were few complaints filed against him. He said if he becomes a ninja then he would cause even more problems in the village. So, the civilian council is requesting the Hokage to forbid that demon from becoming a ninja in his lifetime. Hiashi Hyuga, the one who holds the most power in the Shinobi Council, said the request made by the Civilian Council is very unnatural. The Shinobi side and civilian side started arguing over the topic a lot, but suddenly there was a loud voice that interrupted the argument. The noisy council room fell silent all of a sudden, and everyone is now looking at the serious face of Hiruzen. He then said this argument is unnecessary because I have already decided what to do with him in the future. Hiruzen then said, if he passes the academy's final test then he will be a genin, or else he will be trained by one of the Sannin Jiraiya and this decision is final. After listening to Hiruzen's decision everyone was silent and there were no complaints from anyone in the council room. Other topics were discussed in the council and soon the council was dismissed. Hiruzen was sitting in his office and rubbing his temples. There was a knock on the door. Hiruzen asked them to come in. The door was opened and Naruto came inside. He looked at the pile of paperwork in the room and said, Grandpa, I think we can talk some other time. He then turned to leave, but Hiruzen stopped him and said, this is normal for me, what do you want this time? Naruto then said that he will be heading into the northern forest outside the village walls and I will not be returning for a while, so don't panic about my disappearance. Hiruzen then said that it is okay if you can go, but return within a week. Naruto agreed to the condition and left the village. Hiruzen started to do his paperwork and Naruto reached a place that was far away from the village. He then started to train and no one knew where he went or what he was doing except for Hiruzen. It's been 10 days and there has been no word from Naruto. Hiruzen was now standing over the roof of the Hokage Tower. He was facing towards the north and looking towards the vast forest outside the village walls. Suddenly there was a spike of chakra from behind and when he turned around he saw Naruto carrying a huge scroll on his back. Naruto walked towards Hiruzen and then said, Grandpa, I think you have been searching for this scroll. Hiruzen was very surprised to see the scroll that was stolen a week ago. Naruto then said, I am a clone and come alone to the forest of death. I want to talk to you about something important that concerns the village. Hiruzen then took the scroll to his office and placed it in the same place from where it was stolen. Hiruzen then started to move towards the forest of death and on his way, he signaled his guards to stop following him. After a while, there was no one following him and now he was standing in front of the main gate. There were many cautious signs on it. Hiruzen then jumped over the fence and went into the forest. After a while of walking he reached the building where Naruto was, then he entered the building. For the next few hours, they both talked and in the end, Hiruzen became very serious with him. He then said, Naruto, what you're saying is very absurd and I won't allow you to do as you please. The next morning Naruto was going to the academy and he is being followed by 6 Anbu guards from the shadows. He reached the academy and came to know that he was failed his final exam. Now he has to start all over again. He was now headed to the class to attend his classes. On his way, he being glared and some of the students even started to mock him. After being looked down on by others for a day in the academy, now Naruto was walking through the streets. The same thing was being repeated all over again, but this time around the civilians decided not to let him go. A group of men surrounded him and are ready to attack him head-on, but there was a sudden burst of killer intent. The pressure started to intensify and soon the civilians started to run away from the place in fear. Naruto had a grim face and he started to walk away from the place to his house. The Anbu guards in the shadows also started to follow him to his house. Naruto was in his house and the Anbu guards were following him to all the places, even to his house. The next day in the council meeting, after a huge argument, Hiruzen was forced by the civilian council to make a decision to let Naruto train under Danzo's care. In the evening both Hiruzen and Danzo came to Naruto's house to talk to him. After seeing them, Naruto greeted both of them and Hiruzen then said, Naruto, from today onwards, you will be training under Danzo. Hiruzen was about to tell something, but he was interrupted by Danzo and he said, if you train with me then I will make you stronger. Naruto then asked, if I train with you will I become stronger, and Danzo nodded and said that he will make him the strongest in the village. After talking to him, both Hiruzen and Danzo left the place and Naruto was packing all his things to shift to his new apartment. The next morning only 2 Anbu guards were guarding Naruto's house and soon Naruto opened the door, then out of nowhere 2 Anbu guards appeared in front of him. They both then took Naruto to the root headquarters, which is situated at the back of the Hokage monument. Naruto's training with Danzo's Anbu guards and Naruto was being put through a serious training schedule to make him stronger as soon as possible. Danzo wanted to make Naruto his puppet, but it was somewhat difficult because Hiruzen was frequently visiting him. After training for a whole month, now Naruto was stronger and it's time for him to master the power of the 9 tails. Danzo started to train him, and while he was training he was also trying to gain control over the 9 tails, but his plans were failing one by one. But he was successfully able to place a seal on Naruto's back. It was the same seal that was placed on every Anbu member in the route. His training was going very smoothly, and Naruto can now access a small portion of Nine Tails chakra. Naruto was meditating in a huge room specially made for the training of Jinchurikis. Suddenly the Nine Tails chakra started to leak out of Naruto's body, and Naruto was still deep in the meditation. While this was happening, everyone in the root headquarters was on alert, and Naruto was surrounded by the violent orange chakra of the Kyuubi. Naruto was still meditating. It's been 2 days since then, and there was no sign of him coming out from it anytime soon. Danzo came to check on how things were going on, but when he checked Naruto, he found that the seal that he placed on him is being broken bit by bit. Danzo wanted to use his ultimate jutsu to gain control over Naruto, but he remembered the side effects of using it in the past. Even if it is a success, the side effects were very dangerous. He was very irritated to see his plans being failed, and he was running out of options to control the Kyuubi. The rookie teams were assigned to do D-rank missions to improve their teamwork, and they were getting along with their teammates. From the day they became Genins, all they were doing was taking the D-rank missions and training to improve their skills. They were training in their respective training grounds and were waiting for their chance to go on a higher rank mission. Both teams 9 and 10 were assigned to C-rank missions outside the village. Team 7 was held back and was assigned to the D-rank missions. While this is going on with the rookies, they were going on a mission and are improving their skills and strengths. They were getting ready for the upcoming Chunin exams, and keeping that in mind, every team was being trained by their squad leaders. Days are going smoothly, but suddenly one day Naruto woke up from his deep sleep. After getting the message from the Anbu, Danzo rushed to the room where Naruto was staying. As usual, Naruto continued to do his training. After seeing his progress, Danzo decided to send him on missions with the root Anbu teams. Danzo placed 2 seals on Naruto's body and sent him on a mission. Everything was going well, but suddenly an Anbu came running to the root headquarters and conveyed the news that trembled the very foundations of Konoha. Suddenly everyone was summoned to an urgent meeting by the Hokage. A while later, everyone was in the council room and were arguing with each other. The door was pushed open and Hiruzen entered the room, but this time around he was not in his normal self. The Shinobi Council was fast enough to get it, but suddenly a civilian council member stood up and questioned Hiruzen about summoning them to a meeting late at night. Hiruzen didn't even care to answer his question, but the civilian didn't stop questioning him. Suddenly an Anbu came out of the shadows and pinned him down on the floor. The atmosphere in the room started to change, the temperature dropped a bit, and everyone could feel the chill down their spine. The sudden outburst of Hiruzen's killer intent changed the council. The clan heads corrected their posture and were sitting upright. The atmosphere struck unimaginable fear through the hearts of the civilians, and they were shaking. Hiruzen then took his seat and called Danzo with a grim voice to explain the situation they were facing. Without any hesitation, he came forward and started explaining the situation they were facing. Danzo completed his explanation and went back to his seat, but the room fell to dead silence. Hiruzen then raised his hand, and an Anbu came out of the shadows and knelt before him. Hiruzen then said, "I want every Anbu to move out and track him, capture that bastard alive, and bring him back to the village." The civilian council was struck with fear and started to talk nonsense, but one of them got up and said, "What happens when he attacks the village?" Hiruzen then looked at her and said, "All the ninjas will lay down their lives and protect the village till their dying breath." The other one got up and said, "If that happens, there's no way that we can survive it without losses." Danzo then said, "Whatever happens, the losses are inevitable. Even if we catch him alive, there will be numerous losses. If he comes back to take his revenge, then we will lose much more than the lives of the ninjas." One of the civilians then stood up and said, "That's what we are afraid of from the start." "So, the civilian council wanted to execute the demon, but you were the one that refused our request." Hiruzen then said, "Are you trying to go against my decision? You should clearly remember the consequences that will accompany your words. Remember this, it's an order that this matter should not be spread. If it is done, then the one spreading it will be killed." The members of the civilian council were spouting nonsense, but not even a single person from the Shinobi Council supported them. Hiruzen had enough of that and just walked to one of the civilians, then said, "Do you know why he left the village?" He then said it was because he was taken over by the demon. Suddenly Hiruzen slapped the person in front of him, and his face was all distorted. He was lying on the floor unconscious and a trail of blood started following down from his mouth. Hiruzen then moved on to the next one and asked the same question, but the next one went flying and crashed into the wall. Hiruzen repeated this until he was in front of the woman, and he repeated the same question. He then said, "I think you don't have the answer I want, so be it. Listen to my answer. He left the village because of what we did to him." The woman said, "What have we done to him? It was him who took away everything dear to us and left us with nothing but sadness." Hiruzen was full of anger and he had enough of her. Then he started speaking in a very grim tone and said, "I know everything you have done, don't try to cover it up with your stories. If you people know what happened 13 years ago, then these 13 years would be different. It has reached this point, so I will tell you what happened that night. After the Nine Tails were forced away from the village by Minato. He forced it away, but he couldn't stop the Nine Tails from rampaging. He was out of options because the previous Jinchuuriki was dead from the strain of removing the Kyuubi. There was no container for the Kyuubi to be sealed in, so Minato went into the village in search of the container. While this was happening, he summoned Gamabunta was keeping the Kyuubi from entering the village. Minato brought a newborn who was a week older and teleported to the spot with the boy, and then he started to seal the Kyuubi into the boy. During this process, the Kyuubi tried to kill the newborn, but he sacrificed his life and protected his village from destruction. Hiruzen then said, "If not for the boy, there would be no one to stop the destruction of the village that night." After that, you all know what happened. For 13 years you fools treated him like some kind of animal. It is because everything we did made him leave the village to get revenge for himself. If it is anyone's fault, it is ours, and if he comes back to the village, I will accept him without any issues." After saying those words, Hiruzen left the room, and the civilian council started to shout at the shinobi council for not supporting their decisions. Hiashi Hyuga then got up and said, "If you have a death wish, then you can rebel against the Hokage's decision. Even if we all combine our power, we can't even stand a chance in front of him, and he is the Hokage of Konoha. Even if his decisions lead us to our deaths, we will follow the decisions of the Hokage." Sumin Yuzuka then said, "We are bound to the Hokage's position, whoever may be sitting in that position, we will be bound to follow their decisions." Deep in the forest to the west of Konoha, in a dark cave, we see a figure evading through all the traps. He walked towards the faint light in front of him. He entered the room which had light, and he checked every corner, but there was no one in this underground cave. Then suddenly a figure appeared out of nowhere and said, "Boss, there's no one following us now, we are safe from their pursuit." Then the figure turned and walked into the light to reveal his face. He was Naruto, and he ordered his clones to go out and gather information from the nearby villages. Danzo was continuing the search operations with the Anbu teams. Hiruzen was controlling all the forces of Konoha, and he is the only one that is keeping the village from falling apart. He started to strengthen the forces, and the clans were also training their clan hires to their limits. In a different location far away from the fire country, where the land is covered by dense forest. Deep in the dense forest, in an unknown location in the large hallway, we see a man sitting on a throne. He gave off a very dangerous aura, and beside him stood a man who was tall and strong. Suddenly the huge door of the hall was pushed open and a man came running into the hall. He came in a hurry and knelt in front of him, then handed a scroll that he brought. He then got up from the throne, then walked towards the man and took the scroll from his hands, then started reading. After completing the reading, he folded the scroll and started to laugh, but suddenly he stopped laughing. The man standing beside him then asked his master if there was any problem that needs to be taken care of. The man then said to his subordinate, "You have been by my side for a long time, and do you have any idea why I am gathering so many forces?" The man then answered, "My lord, I think you have a plan to create a hidden village that rivaled the hidden villages of the elemental nations." The man sitting on the throne asked his subordinate to come in front, and he did as he was ordered to. When he lifted his head, he saw the real face of his master. A pale-skinned man with long hair, and there were violet markings around his eyes with a yellow slitted pupil. He was wearing a kimono, and while walking he said, "This is my real identity, and this is the right time for us to create our village as we planned." Then he waved his hand and 4 people appeared in front of him. They all were wearing the same outfits with headbands bearing the sound symbol. They all knelt and said, "Lord Orochimaru, what are your orders for us?" The man then said, "All 4 of you go and deliver my message to all our hideouts and gather up all our scattered forces." He then said, "It's time to create a new hidden village and take control of some territory for ourselves." They all then said, "As you wish, my lord, we will carry out your orders." After that, they all left the room. Everyone is making their move according to the situation. Soon the major powers will also make their moves. That's it for this video, guys. If you like this video, then please do share, like, and subscribe to this channel for more videos.